New Galaxy Broadcasting proudly presents Integrative Hermetic Health with Hugo Rodier, MD. In this program, we explore a powerful new paradigm for health from the standpoint of integrative medicine. In his practice, Dr. Rodier integrates the ancient Hermetic art and the enduring role of food as medicine with modern nutrition, but also allowing for the wide range of important health practices, including truly valuable medical discoveries, chiropractic, acupuncture, homeopathic, and herbal medicine. In this program, Hugo Rodier, an expert in intestinal health and nutrition, will help the audience discover an approach that focuses on actual cures, not the masking of the elegant simplicity of many health solutions for the sake of profit. Profit too long has been an overriding motive of the pharmaceutical companies, and sometimes, sadly, by many in the medical establishment today. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Johnny.
Have you been doing your exercise this week?
Every day.
I understand you're a runner, right?
You know, I used to run when I got to be 55. I slowed down, so now I walk uphill on a treadmill.
Oh, on a treadmill, okay.
Yeah, just saving my knees, and I think it's wise to slow down a little bit, is put on a lot of mileage,
Well, that's good. I try to exercise every day, but sometimes I take vacations. This is a kind of really strange article that we were going to discuss here. I'm going to just read a bit so you can comment on it, okay?
All right.
This you titled this Catching the Exercise Bug, literally. Research discovering the wide effects of the microbiome on our health is growing exponentially as predicted. Practically all health issues are linked to how your gut bacteria is shaped by the food you eat and the chemicals you insult them with. I like that. If a particular link between the microbiome and a health issue has not been found, it soon will be. Now, what's really interesting here is that researchers have identified a certain bacteria tied to athletic performance. And this is actually a study by Lampert, but quoted by NPR, which reports on its website that researchers identified a group of bacteria that are more common in athletes, especially after exercise, and may play a role in enhancing athletic performance. The researchers then isolated the bacterial strain from the elite runners, put it into the colons of lab mice, and found that these human-derived bacteria boosted the mouse's performance on the treadmill exercise test by 13%. Wow. So now we are going to use human specimens in order to major experiments with mice. That's interesting, huh?
Yes, I hate to sound like a broken record here, but we have recorded ad nauseum.
I'm sorry, you broke up completely. I don't know why.
We have recorded and identified so many articles that point out the role of the microbiome, our gut bacteria, our overall health, what we are, who we are, how we function. So this article should not be a surprise to any of us tracking this issue. We already had hints of it because we know that our gut bacteria affects our metabolism, how we consume energy. And exercise is mostly about consuming energy at peak levels. So soon we're going to have, if we don't already, any casual research into Google Scholar or something like that, any other search engine, will yield many articles on how the microbiome affects every function of our life. So pretty soon we might be having stool transplants in athletes from one top notch to another just to enhance the performance of the recipient. And we talked about stool transplants before, and of course people go, ooh, yucky.
They're not going to do this on the track or on the athletic field, are they? That would definitely be distasteful.
For a period of time, just a one-time shot. I don't know that it does much, but the articles I see on stool transplants, they don't really take hold unless you do it daily for like a month. And we have documented a whole lot of articles showing how transplanting stool from a healthy person will bring a lot of healing and improvement in the health of the recipient, even weight loss, even arthritic issues, and
wow.
Of course, for sure, GI issues, gastrointestinal issues. And doctors have been disciplined for doing these transplants and charging a lot of money. So now it's limited to treatment of Clostridium difficile failures.
Huh? I'm sorry, I don't know what that means.
Clostridium difficile, it's a type of bacteria that you treat with antibiotics, but Clostridium can be resistant to antibiotics. So if a person continues to have that infection, a stool transplant is sanctioned by the FDA. I'm sure doctors are still doing it for many other issues. The problem is they'll charge you an arm and a leg, a lot of money for these stool transplants when people could do it on their own with a little direction. If they find a good donor, that's the catch right there.
Yeah, and so they're going to penalize people because nobody wants to, or very few people are going to find their own
most
donor.
When I mention this therapy to people, they don't look too pleased or too eager to do it. But I've had some desperate patients who not getting better with nutrition and antibiotics alone. They have done it with great results. Yeah, we veered quite a long ways from the article on catching the exercise bug, but the point of the story is that, again and again, our gut bacteria is so dramatically important to our health.
Well, just to amplify that a little bit, the report talks about that researchers found the bacteria vellonola were much more common in the guts of marathoners compared to sedentary people, and the bugs rose in abundance soon after the runners finished the race. I think that's interesting.
It's very interesting. The ramifications in the world of sports are going to be myriad.
Well, are people going to wear T-shirts with the kind of microbes they use, like Velonelia on the back of their T-shirt?
Well, there you go. Maybe you can start a business selling those T-shirts right there.
People start to cheer for the bacteria instead of the marathoners. Anyway, now here's another interesting thing. Studies suggest that nut consumption during pregnancy may benefit neurodevelopment. The New York Times reports on a study by Bacalar, published in the European Journal of Epidemiology, found that children of mothers who ate 2 to 3 ounces of nuts a week during pregnancy tended to score higher on tests of memory, attention, and IQ. The study included mothers filling out surveys during pregnancy and tests administered to children at ages 1.5, 5, and 8 years old. Well, what do you think of that? Why?
We've known about omega oils. That's what the article is really about. Nuts are high in omega oils, particularly omega-3 oils, which have been shown to be quite salutary for brain health because our brain is 80% fat. Of course, some people's brains are 100% fat, but we won't go there.
There isn't such a thing as fatty brains like there is fatty liver, though, right?
No, not so far. That's a good point. We might those articles in the future, but so you need a lot of good oils to make up our brains, and particularly in gestation. So women who eat fish and eat a lot of avocados and nuts, not just nuts, will have babies with a higher IQ. I've seen articles where the IQ can be up to 10 points higher.
Really?
Which will make a big difference in a child's life, as we know.
Well, that's really nuts, I'll tell you.
Yeah. And so we still have people frowning upon nuts, saying, oh, they have too much fat. All the while, they're stuffing themselves with Twinkies and cookies. And so there's a lot of misinformation about nuts. And so even when people are losing weight, I urge them to eat nuts for many reasons. We already talked about the omega oils in the brain, but another reason is that you get full sooner. So the sooner and the better you get full, the less you crave the bad food, the sugar. So I wouldn't worry about the calories in nuts because you come out ahead by being filled with good fat. And it's never been about the fat. That was in the 60s and 70s, we demonized fat because the statin pharmaceutical drugs, marketing statin drugs, wanted to demonize fat to sell more statin drugs to lower cholesterol. Yeah. We talked about that before, how It's been a big scam, really.
Well, listen, we have to take a break now, and we'll be right back. This is Johnny Bluestar, CEO of New Galaxy Enterprises, a media content development company. In addition to serving our freelance writing clients, we have a number of in-house proprietary products that we could use active investors to participate in. Active investors will get appropriate credit for their participation in writing, marketing, or assistance in producing. These projects are screenplays, TV pilots, or books, some susceptible for further in-house development as film and novel franchises or standalone film, novel, or television series. Many are in various stages of completion, but there are some in an idea stage. Money invested in these projects are for content development and marketing the screenplay, novel, or pilot to appropriate industry venues, including literary or talent agencies, production companies, television and movie studios. To learn more about New Galaxy, see samples of our work, or talk to us about your project, please go to www.newgalaxyenterprises.com and fill out the contact form.
It is the 15th century. El Tesoro de Cielo, a Spanish treasure ship, sends a scouting expedition to a strange island. Golden statues surrounding them prove the enormity of their find. Suddenly, hordes of ghoulish creatures with scaly green flesh and skeletal wings descend upon them from the sky.
What do you think of this, Rufio?
These creatures are fragile, Captain. We can take them with our swords.
They seem supernatural. Who knows what powers they possess?
Fallen angels, weakened by their treason.
My God! Are you saying they're Nephilim, the devil's host?
I'm saying, whatever they are, we can take them. Do any of you cowards dare join me?
Up against sharp knife-like nails and hideous fangs, the men's swords rip into slimy green flesh. Though black blood pours copiously from their half-naked bodies, creatures miraculously persist. Can the crew survive this bloody, cursed battle?
Find out more by Googling The Thrice Born, a new sci-fi supernatural novel by Carlos Lopez Avery and Johnny Bluestar. Google with the words Carlos Johnny Kendall, The Thrice Born. That's Carlos Johnny Kendall, The Thrice Born.
This next song was originally sort of a spiritual song in Russian, which Edgar provided to us, and we wrote lyrics for it in English, called My Heart Is Ready, sung by Patricia Welch. Well, good morning again, and we're going to be discussing some interesting articles here, one of which is the effect of liquid meal replacements on cardiometabolic risk factors in obese individuals with type 2 diabetes. This is a systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials. It's brought out in Diabetes Care 2019, their May issue. What do you think of that?
I've been using meal replacements for decades. I think the evidence is quite good, like this article here. They have so many good effects. The article mentions the angle on diabetes and weight loss, and they're very practical. That's why they're called.
You're not talking about processed meal replacements, are you? Or
no, I'm not. There are many out there in the market, and I'm sure some are better than others, but I prefer the ones that are more organic and made from whole food, and basically they're chock full of prebiotic.
That's good.
You recall that word, meaning full of micronutrients like fructooligosaccharides and inulin, etc., that feed probiotics. So I've been using them mostly to heal the gut and the microbiome, because by feeding the good bacteria, they can beat up on the bad bacteria that might be creating problems such as inflammation in the gut. And so that's how you get the benefit. So remember, we've talked about how a good microbiome will help you process calories, metabolize better. Hence, you'll have a lower risk of diabetes, even treat diabetes that way, and lose weight. And there are many out there, like I said, in the market. I like Lean, Lean, by Health Sync Global. And there are many others out there. Buyer beware because of what you said. Some might be too processed and lacking in prebiotics. But other than that, they can be very practical because a lot of people are on the run and they're not going to stop to slow down to prepare their veggies and the other foods we talk about.
Yeah.
And so at least once a day, a meal replacement, a good thing to do. And I use them quite a bit when I'm healing the gut. I mentioned that already, I guess. For a period of time, that's all I will give patients, mixed with blending of veggies, organic veggies, to sort of rest the gut, sort of like a modified fast. So I use them in that context as well. If you have an injured gut for whatever reason, just like a sprained ankle, you want to rest the gut, but you still got to eat. So a meal replacement blending of veggies is quite helpful. Of course, the best would be to put you in the hospital with an IV, but that'd be boring and expensive.
Well, there are certain meal replacements on the market, I think, that you get in supermarket stores that are not too good for you.
So a lot of them have a lot of sugar. They have just nothing but fiber or nothing but protein, and they're lacking in the micronutrients I talked about. You want to spend some good amount of a good chunk of money when you buy them. Don't buy the cheap ones. Think of them, meal replacements, as buying groceries. So it's not like you're spending more, really.
That's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that because I'm mostly familiar with the supermarket variety. So that's a good thing to put into my menu once in a while. Here's another article in Nature Medicine. Maternal infection linked to psychiatric disorders. Now, they're talking about eating disorders. It says girls with infections in childhood at higher risk for developing eating disorders. And this was published by the New York Times, reporting a study by Bacalar. Says girls who have serious or repeated infections in childhood are at a higher risk for developing eating disorders in adolescence. They tracked, listen to this, 525,643 girls, every girl born in Denmark from 1989 to 2006, and recording, quote, all prescriptions that were filled for antibiotics and other anti-infective medications, as well as hospitalizations for infection through 2012. There were 4,240 diagnoses of eating disorders during this time. The findings suggest immunologic disorder and that hospital-treated infections and less severe infections treated with anti-infective agents are associated with increased risk of subsequent anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, and eating disorders not otherwise specified, and that future studies should investigate whether these associations are causal, identify the exact mechanisms between infections and subsequent inflammatory processes with eating disorders. It looks to me that it might be, you tell me if I'm wrong, it might be, say, instead of maternal infection, they might say maternal infection treatment linked to psychiatric disorders. And I don't know if they should use the word psychiatric either. But anyway, that's all right.
No, they should. And the article is amazing, remarkable, great study, but it stops short because researchers are afraid to push the envelope too much. There are repercussions in the world of academics if you stick your neck out too much. They tend to be conservative.
So you agree that it should probably say maternal infection treatments and refer to the antibiotics and other anti-infective medications. Is that correct?
Well, yes. And so they're so shy in their conclusion. We have documented extensive the brain-gut connection. Bad bacteria in the gut, the result of infections and poor eating and pesticides and acid-blocking pills, etc., will generate inflammation. We have that inflammation can leak out of the gut and go to the brain. We call it endotoxemia, et cetera, et cetera. We've documented how antibiotics have been linked to other disorders, psychiatric disorders in the past. And so for them to say, oh, we don't know the mechanism of action here. Yes, we do. They hinted at it, inflammation. I wish the article would have since they looked at such huge number of.
Yeah, 525,000 girls.
I wish they had also tracked depression, anxiety, and other common psychiatric disorders. I tell you, I've seen articles where even schizophrenia is linked to gut problems, even neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and etc. And so, of course, we're going to even see mood changes in normal people according to how the gut bacteria ebbs and flows. And so it goes to show you how dynamic this field is. And people coming up with these great studies are risking a lot, but I wish they'd talk to one another, because if they did, these guys would not have been so shy about their conclusion.
I wonder how these things are looked at in Denmark, specifically.
That too. I shouldn't say, but my guess is they don't have as many studies as we do about the microbiome and the brain-gut connection.
But a lot of these countries, I mean, I don't know about Denmark, but they're a little bit more open to other types of, medicinal care than the conventional ones that we use. I guess sympathetic with the perspective of integrative medicine.
It varies.
In some countries,
country. France, I know, they're starting to cover homeopathy, for example, insurance companies. Of course, it's mostly the government. And so a lot of people are getting reimbursed for using homeopathy. I should also say that the whole concept of the microbiome, probiotics and all that, earned a Nobel Prize to an Austrian physician, Metnikov, back in 1908. I believe he was Austrian. But you know what? I think we're kind of guessing here. Somebody knows more about far Europeans have taken the concept of the microbiome. We'd like to know.
I did think that homeopathy was pretty big in England.
It is. It's bigger in France. Yeah, because in France they've been more into perfumes and distilling chemicals, molecules from flowers, in their perfume industry. Hence also the reason why the French are really big on essential oil.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, we're going to see, here's another thing. This is kind of a disturbing little article here, if I understand it correctly, and you'll have to tell me. This is published in Medscape. Common chemicals may play a role in childhood obesity. A variety of common everyday chemicals is adding to the current obesity epidemic among American children, and pediatricians need to educate and advocate against their use, according to Leonardo Trisande, MD from NYU Langone Health in New York City. Synthetic chemical explosion in utero can scramble molecular hormonal signals that set children up to develop obesity and cardiovascular risks through a number of mechanisms, Trisandi told Medscape Medical News. The most prominent of these potential mechanisms involves the direct metabolic disruption of several pathways, which, quote, can literally make fat cells bigger or disrupt the functions of proteins that protect the heart, for example, explained. And he goes on a bit. The point is, this is happening before they're born, correct?
Yes, even after they're born, even in adults. We've known about obesogens. That's a name for these chemicals for decades. Obesogens, yes. We've known that chemicals can mess with your metabolism. And so, audience has been awake. They would know immediately the mechanism, because we've talked about it, we've hinted at it even today. The mechanism is pretty clear. Chemicals mess with your microbiome and with your liver. And so you can take it from there, right?
Yeah.
Because we've already documented how our microbiome affects how we consume calories, how the microbiome affects the liver, which in turn detoxifies chemicals. So if you have a fatty liver, you're caught in a vicious cycle, because the fatty liver will induce you to process calories even worse. And the fatty liver itself is diabetogenic, causes more diabetes, if you will, because you're not processing calories very well, sugar very well. It's all a big ball of wax. The role of chemicals at the cellular level has been amply documented. Just as bad foods can mess with metabolism at the cell membrane level, we know that chemicals can make cell membranes toxic and resistant to insulin. And so that's another huge mechanism, insulin resistance. And you recall we talked about how our cell membranes can grow stiff and inflamed and oxidized and toxic from bad foods and bad chemicals. And so you become insulin resistant, which is the technical name for prediabetes, if you will, even diabetes, obesity. All these metabolic issues have been amply documented to be made worse by chemicals. Why would chemicals be different from other molecules that enter our body? And so this is a big fly in the ointment in the chemical industry. They will tell you over and over how their chemicals are. And true, we need them in our modern society. Yes, we do, for many reasons, from technology to industrial production, etc. But I wish we had been more forthcoming with their effect. If we're going to use something, people should be informed as to the potential harm, to maybe curtail the use or safeguard, take precautions, etc. And of course, the biggest offender of them all is pesticides.
Well, we're going to take a break now and come back in just a couple of minutes. And we're going to get into something very interesting report we see about Tylenol. My company, New Galaxy Enterprises, is a California corporation specializing in the creation of media and promotional content. We are focused on original, innovative projects that are good for humanity. These projects could be nonfiction books or novels, fictional screenplays or documentary content, websites and website content, commercial advertising content for print, audio, or video products on the internet, television, or radio, musical scores for advertising, television, or film, video, audio editing, etc. We want to promote products and projects that support the environment, encourage a healthy experience in living, developing, nurturing, and useful technology, and offering platforms for positive, socially constructive entertainment or informative, transformative media. Our experience in creating a variety of products like this is rather vast, and we offer client-based and collaborative products, as well as the opportunity of active investors to join us in the creation and promotion of proprietary products, some of which are in latter stages of development. For more information, go to www.newgalaxyenterprises.com. That's www.newgalaxyenterprises.com. If you're interested in talking to us, just fill out the contact sheet and we will get back with you. Dr. Hugo Rodier has published 4 books on health issues covering practically all chronic health problems. You may find them by accessing his website at hugorodier.com. That's HUGORODIER.com. Gut health is the most academic, while switching off chronic disease is the most patient-oriented, with simple recipes to implement his nutritional protocols. And now, Patty Greer's Are You the One?
Take me deep into your heart. Show me, are you the one? Gonna dance me round till the morning comes. Are you the one? Gonna let me be your only one? Show me tricks that I've never seen. Let me be the queen of your life. Right now, take me.
Well, we're back again on the Integrative Hermetic Health Show with Dr. Hugo Rodier. Doctor, we're going to be discussing how Tylenol may blunt empathy. This is from Medscape. Can you believe that? It blunts empathy. I never noticed. I never noticed it because I never take Tylenol. But anyway. Quote, investigators showed scenarios of positive experiences to 114 college students who had taken either acetaminophen, 1,000 milligrams, or a placebo, and found that those who had taken acetaminophen experienced less pleasure and empathic feelings towards the hypothetical characters in comparison with those who had taken placebo. The ability to recognize pleasure and positivity was unaffected. We found that acetaminophen reduced the affective, although not the cognitive side of empathy, says Dominic Mishkovsky, PhD visiting assistant professor at Ohio University in that. He told Medscape Medical News, but I would like to strongly emphasize that this doesn't mean you should stop recommending acetaminophen to patients who have pain. Pain is still a very aversive experience, and a non-prescription painkiller is still a very good tool in their toolbox. What? Can you explain this?
Well, sure. We were talking about it 10, 15 minutes ago. It's, again, the brain-gut connection. The liver has a lot to do with feeling. In fact, think of an alcoholic. Their emotions are all over the map. They even have brain degeneration, and a lot of it is connected to their liver being pickled.
Okay. Is that cirrhosis?
Yeah, you can think of it that way. That's a technical name. I just like to use common jargon a little bit too. And so remember that Tylenol is very rough on the liver. That's where I was leading. In fact, half of liver failures in the United States are from Tylenol.
Really?
Yes. And so that's a dirty little secret about Tylenol.
Are they taking Tylenol for headaches and stuff, or are they taking it for heart conditions or something?
Well, mostly for joint pain, is why people take Tylenol. Yeah, also for headache. And, and it's okay, it's just that you want to keep doing it. And if you're going to do it, be aware that there are side effects. But when we have these drugs over the counter, people get the false impression that they're quite safe. Again, you should use them in an acute situation, even surgery. Just saw an article where Tylenol and ibuprofen after surgery are just as good as opioids. So this whole lie that you have to have opioids after surgery, and some patients are led to believe that they should be on opioids for the rest of their life because they had surgery, that's just big pharma.
Wow, that's pretty evil, huh?
It's evil. That's why they're getting sued left and right, pharmaceuticals producing opioids, because, number one, they told doctors when beautiful drug reps went to their offices that some of the opioids, particularly oxycodone, were not habit-forming, and they were very much needed for after surgery and all that. Now, yes, there are some surgeries that are more painful than others. Yes, there's a place for opioids after surgery, but stay on them for chronic use. Yes, there are people who should do that. But I believe that it should be less than half the people that have been wound up addicted to opioids, which is a tragedy because their moods, their thinking, their memory is altered. We've seen that opioids cut back on longevity. You don't live as long if you're on opioids. And of course, when you talk to people on opioids, they will reject everything I just told you. That's just the nature of the addiction. There are some people who should be on opioids. And so it's a difficult issue, but I digress there a little bit. The point is Tylenol. Yes, it can affect your moods. And this particular article zeroed in on the fact that it does alter empathy. Yeah, I think people should be made aware of these things, particularly when it comes to drugs over the counter.
It's good to know. I'll be more careful sometime in the next 20 or 30 years I may take some. Here's one. Medication for treatment of BPH increased risk for diabetes. So these are people who have prostate problems. The New York Times reports that two commonly used drugs for treating an enlarged prostate may increase the risk for type 2 diabetes, and included in this study were 39,000 men taking Proscar, which has finasteride as a...
finasteride.
Thank you, I can't pronounce these things. Or Avidor, which is dutasteride, and 16,000 men taking why do they have to write these things? Tamsulosin or Flomax, a different type of drug for benign prostate hypertrophy. That's BPH. The study revealed that compared with those using Flomax, men using Avodorf had a 32% increased risk for developing diabetes, and those using Proscar, a 26% increased risk. So you comment that both prostate problems and diabetes are common. Pick your poison, or better yet, stop eating processed foods full of pesticides. They are xenoestrogens that fuel prostate and metabolic problems. Maybe you want to comment on this.
Well, prostate issues are common in men as they age. And the main problem with the prostate in men is that they're not eating enough veggies. So their prostates are getting oxidized, if you will. And when oxidized and inflamed, they are more susceptible to xenoestrogens in the environment. Also, they're not detoxifying them as well because the liver needs the same nutrients and oxidants to detoxify better. So you end up with a swollen, oxidized, inflamed prostate when you don't eat so well, and when you're exposed to too many chemicals, particularly xenoestrogens, chief among them pesticides. And all those things we just talked about, how all those things can make you more diabetic. This is why when you see someone sick, they tend to be on 5 to 10 drugs, because the same mechanism, inflammation, oxidation, poor nutrition, the microbiome, your liver, detoxification issues will start to beat up on all cells. Why would it only beat up on the prostate? Makes no sense. And so since you're getting challenged by poor nutrition, poor environments, and poor emotions and relationships, all cells of the body will start to suffer. Of course, you might come down with a prostate issue before you come down with a heart issue, and somebody else will be struggling with arthritis. So all these different diseases are felt to be different because they don't understand how things work at the cellular level, so that they manifest differently in one person and another is because of our genetic tendencies. Think of a chain with weak links. My weak link, genetic weak link, is diabetes. I get diabetes with all those common cellular challenges. Your weak link might be heart issues, so you get a heart disease from the same challenges. So this is the beauty of epigenetic. What's above genetic? The weak link. The environment we live in.
Well, I want to ask you a question. This is like would be a guess on your part, I'm sure. But if you were going to talk about the entire population of, say, the United States, how many people are over-medicated to the extent that, percentage-wise, that these medications are actually interfering with their health?
Well, I'd say 90%.
90% of the entire population?
Right. When we talk about drugs, we have to be careful. As we speak, we have nurses and doctors working 24/7, sacrificing their lives in ICUs and emergency rooms to save our lives. They do it with drugs, with surgery, with a whole lot of acute tools. And if I wound up in the emergency room, I'd be very happy that they were there to take care of me. So if one of those workers were listening to us, and I don't think too many are, they would think that our views are skewed, right?
Yeah. Well, they're using a lot of these things for the right reasons, right?
Exactly. There's a place for them. And so I'm totally willing to say, hooray for you, continue doing what you're doing. If you see me come in, give me Prozac and Prilosix IV, whatever you got to save my life. And then call Joe the surgeon to cut out whatever needs to be cut out, whatever. So you get the point.
Yeah. We're going to be discussing some interesting little articles here. Here's one that was written on April 12, 2019 in Medscape. Metformin linked to worse cognition, B vitamin deficiency. Metformin is associated with worse cognitive function in older adults, which could be explained by a B vitamin deficiency, new research suggests. Fortified foods can provide a bioavailable source of B vitamins and may be beneficial for maintaining better cognitive health in older people or at risk for diabetes, but this requires confirmation in an intervention trial, says Dr. Christy M. Porter of Ulster University in Tullamarine, Northern Ireland, and colleagues conclude in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, online March 28th. So there's an association between long-term metformin treatment and vitamin B12 malabsorption, which was first reported 40 years ago. Dr. Porter and colleagues note deficiency in B12, folate, vitamin B6, and riboflavin have also been linked to cognitive dysfunction. Well, I think you're going to talk about the liver and gut flora, aren't you?
Absolutely. And I'm glad the researchers mentioned that we've known this for 40 years.
It's the first time I've seen that in all our... I mean, you've mentioned that many times before, but this is the first time I've actually seen it in a little discussion of the research.
Yes. Metformin, it's probably the safest oral agent to beat. And so, in fact, I blogged once. If you're going to take one drug and you have to, I'd say metformin. But I also documented in that blog that it has problems. All drugs do. Now, the reason why I prefer drugs, particularly in treating diabetes, is because metformin was derived from the herb Galega officinalis, or the French lily. And so they've used it for centuries in Europe, particularly France, to help people with sweet urine. And that's what they called it before. And they noted even in medieval times that people with sweet urine didn't do so well. That led to one thing and another, and then pretty soon they were using the French lily to treat these people with good results. So the pharmaceuticals took the French lily and extracted the molecule they now call metformin. So you can see that by altering what Mother Nature was trying to do, you might make the effect stronger, but you also side effect. And so we know the side effects of metformin. it irritates the gut. And that's how it is you wind up with less B vitamins, which are critical for making neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters then going to affect your moods. And that's why metformin has been linked to mood issues from the lack of B vitamins. So again, metformin affects the microbiome. It also affects the liver. So we have a whole lot of articles linking metformin to liver issues. And in the liver, you methylate. That's one of the functions of the liver, which is critical for neurotransmitter functioning.
Okay, what does that mean, methylate? What does methylate mean?
Methylation is a process in the liver that needs B vitamin. So if you don't have enough B vitamins on account of the effect of metformin, your liver will not methylate, which is critical. Methylation is the function of the liver for detoxification of chemicals that may be beating up on your brain as well, and also for the manufacturing neurotransmitter. So you can see how metformin then will be part of the brain-gut connection story.
Should we, in this case, and I guess it would depend, but a lot of drugs are taken, they're sort of synthesizing what they consider to be the most patentable aspect of a certain natural plant, right?
Exactly.
Would it be better to go back to the French lily?
Of course, it would. But the French lily, Gallego officinalis, that's quackery, says Big Pharma. And of course, their duplicity.
That's so bad.
Well, they've done that with every natural molecule. They did it to omega oils, they did it to melatonin, probiotic, vitamins, you name it. Melatonin, it's all quackery. Until they isolate their drug from the same products. The most glaring example is statin drugs, which came from fermented red rice. So to market statins, they had to demonize fermented red rice. Oh, it's going to kill you. No.
That's so evil.
It is immoral. Well, but you know what? It's business, because in politics, in those two fields, to get ahead, what do? Beat up on the competition, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like that's an overriding tendency everywhere, including politics, you know.
Yeah, we do it as humans, I suppose, you know. Hopefully you grow it in kindergarten, but beat up on other people, right?
Yeah, I mean, that kind of psychological tendency is rampant in our culture, and particularly in geopolitics, where it becomes increasingly dangerous. I wanted to go to another article here in Medscape. It says low cholesterol is a higher risk of hemorrhagic stroke. It says women with low levels of low-density lipoprotein cholesterol, LDL-C, and triglycerides may be more than twice as likely to have a hemorrhagic stroke than women with higher levels, a new study suggests. Investigations at Harvard University prospectively studied a cohort of almost 28,000 women, health study for a period of approximately 20 years. Now, that's a good study, right?
Yes.
They found that compared to those who with LDL-C levels were 100 to 130 milligrams, that's what they had, women whose LDL-C's levels were 70 milligrams per DL had more than twice the risk of experiencing hemorrhagic stroke after adjusting for other factors that could affect stroke risk. Similarly, women whose triglyceride level was in the lowest quartile significantly increased risk for hemorrhagic stroke compared to women whose level was in the top quartile after multivariable adjustment. You want to make heads or tails out of that one?
Well, sure. We tangentially talked about it earlier, or maybe the last time we talked, but basically your brain is 80% fat, you see? So if you are lowering your fats, your brain is going to suffer. Ironically, a lot of people with strokes, docs assume correctly that it's arteries clogging up for the most part, will give you statin drugs, which will, number one, decrease the amount of fat. And so what are you doing? Further, statin drugs have been shown to increase the risk of diabetes, which eats at your blood vessels, causing more circulatory problems. And so this whole story of fats really messed up because the statin drug companies got their fingers in the pie for self-interest and created drugs that are questionable. Now, there are people who should be on statin drugs, absolutely, but I think 90% of them could get off if they learned about these things and ate the right diet. Yeah, so this whole story about fat, it needs to be revisited. In fact, we talked about it quite a lot on the show.
Yeah.
Hey, Johnny, I've been thinking about our discussion last week. Remember we talked about breathing? Specifically, you brought that up, remember?
Yes, I was talking about a sort of intentional breathing using the Wim Hof method during exercise, which is just an experiment I'm doing.
Well, there are many techniques of breathing, but they're quite simple. And basically, it's all about maximizing oxygen input to the brain. Because when you breathe diaphragmatically, intentionally, quietly, you do get more oxygen to the brain. And that has a lot of salutary effects. But it also has other effects that I want to point out. But before we get going, let me make sure that everybody knows what diaphragmatic breathing is. And that's basically when you inflate your lungs downward, picture your diaphragm going down in your belly. That allows for the lungs to expand downward. There's more room for expansion because the rib cage doesn't move much. So when people breathe with the chest, you're not going to get that much lung expansion laterally to the side as you would from lowering the diaphragm. This is what singers do, and people who play wind instruments, they have to do that or they won't perform. So number one, you get a lot more oxygen that way. But there are other facts. When you breathe diaphragmatically, you engage the parasympathetic system or the autonomic system, which is very relaxing, promotes more alpha waves. It has a tremendous effect in people with anxiety, for example, or panic attack, are always breathing with the chest, thereby limiting the amounts of oxygen that go to the brain, which can be very disconcerting to the brain. That's what a panic attack is. The brain senses that your gases, blood gases, are all messed up, and that can lead to hyperventilation, which makes the problem worse. And so that's why panic attacks can be averted if we teach people to breathe diaphragmatically, thereby engaging the parasympathetic system, deliver better gases to the brain, and relax.
So you're saying you can train the autonomic nervous system to breathe normally without paying attention to it diaphragmatic way?
Oh, yes, that's what meditators achieve. People who meditate and zero in on the breathing are so trained that they end up breathing diaphragmatically even without trying, just walking around paying no attention because they're already trained to breathe diaphragmatically.
Well, that's really interesting.
Well, it gets more interesting because when you breathe with the chest, you not only mess up your blood gases, you don't get enough oxygen, etc., but you also engage the sympathetic system when you breathe with the chest. And so what's the sympathetic system? That's anxiety, adrenaline, being geared up. And so think of sympathetic, the chest, parasympathetic, the belly. Read up a little bit about it, and you'll find the bottom line is relaxation with breathing diaphragmatically, being uptight, breathing with the chest.
Well, I practice singing a lot. It's completely, you get such a much richer tone and so much more control over your voice when you sing from your diaphragm instead of from your upper chest or your, what they call a head, from your head.
Right. And a lot of it is just being relaxed. In fact, we know that it has a big effect on the brain. In fact, people with heavy accents, they can get rid of it by singing. And every time I say it, I think of ABBA. I loved ABBA, I still do. But they had thick Scandinavian accents, these people, those four performers. But not when they sang, did they?
That's interesting. No, I didn't know that. I think the breath is really important. I'm studying it now with exercise, and I'm doing breathing exercise followed by a cold shower, which is part of the Wim Hof method. And I find after I do that, there's a great deal of clarity in my thinking. It's kind of eliminates a lot of the clutter. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Also, it's very theological, spiritual. The ancients refer to God and consciousness as the breath of life. And we see that a lot in Holy Writ, including the Bible.
Well, the word in Hebrew for spirit is ru, which also means, I believe, wind or breath. Well, listen, we're going to have to end the show. I thought it was really interesting. We'll be back again with some more exciting revelations about our health. And you have anything final to say to our audience today?
Bye-bye. See you later.
Take care. The Coalition is a unique project designed to empower its members both individually and collectively. Besides individual empowerment, its broader focus is on the restoration, protection, and enhancement of citizen and human rights throughout the world through the aid of its members. As this project is centered in the United States, our first task is to create a website and social network infrastructure to promote collective efforts to take back our rightful control as citizens over our government as designed by our founding fathers. Although we must begin with the social network restricted to United States citizens, the organization will also host a global dialogue for the discussion of human rights by citizens of democratic nations throughout the world. If you're interested, please check us out in the GoFundMe.com website, entering in the search field the Coalition for Planetary Empowerment. That is, go to GoFundMe.com and enter in the search field the Coalition for Planetary Empowerment. For more information about Dr. Rodier's practice, books, blogs, and newsletters, contact Hugo Rodier, MD, at www.hugorodier.com. That's HUGORODIER.com. I think a lot of us want our planet back, and here's the official song about that request by Patty Greer.
We want our planet back. It's been going on too long. Everyone is waking up, and the animals are strong. Nature needs rebounding, so we're wishing on the stars. I'm just a kid at heart, and that is where we start. Who's in charge here? Who's in charge here? Let's do it differently. It's sickening all the people, and it's killing all the trees. It's falling in our eyes, and it's getting harder to see the beauty that is our world, and the freedom to be free. It's landing in the water. We know it's in the air. It's time for you and me to show we care. Say no to GMOs hiding in our food, and no to fluoride in our water too. Who's in charge here? Who's in charge here? Let's save this family and do what's right for Earth and you and me. Step into the new way, where we live in harmony. No more war, no more fracking. We are free. Charge here. Who's in charge? Let's do it differently. Sickening all the people, and it's killing all the trees. It's falling in our eyes, and it's getting harder to see the beauty that is our world, and the freedom to be free.